So, welcome to the Ultra Running Sam podcast. So, just a quick word about our sponsors going forward. Obviously, we're sponsored, have been for a long time by you Goku projects, the trail running caps. Go check them out. Also, we're sponsored by Phoenix, however you pronounce it. Choose your way to pronounce it. We're sponsored by those head torches, so discount codes are around. And also, we are proudly sponsored by Home Trails. So, obviously, you'll know that Home Trails is the series on YouTube for where I go and interview trail runners in their home environments and on the trails, and sit down interview out on the trails. But we're also turning it into a bit of a brand. So, going forward, you're going to be hearing more about Home Trails. So, we'll be organising social runs in and around the Midlands and the Peak District specifically, possibly some merchandise coming out, some hats and some t-shirts and stuff, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Okay, duties are done, on with the show. Okay, so quick advert just here. So Ranger Ultras. So if you've been inspired by, the Spine race recently and you want a extended route challenge, and obviously trying to get into the Spine race is difficult at the best of times, but if you want a local, friendly, um, great value for money, long trail experience, then Ranger Ultras offers um, two. Well, he's got loads of races on. Stu Westfield's got loads of races on, but the one that we're doing an advert for is the Pennine Bridleway Trail Challenge. So the PB 270 is the full distance. So that is 168 miles, and it is Middleton Top. To Kirkby Stevens, so 168 miles, 100 hours. This will be the third time that he's put the race on. There's also the shorter version, which is the PB 137. Now, for that one, it's got a 50-hour cut off, and you go from Hebden Hay to Kirkby Stevens. So it's, the Pennine Bridle Way follows a similar route up the country as to the Pennine Way, but obviously it's more runnable trail. So if you don't fancy falling in a bog, this is the one for you. So there's still the same sort of great scenery, but more runnable trails. So if you fancy a challenge in April, so that takes place over the first week in April. So registration's on the 2nd of April, and the race starts on the 3rd of April. Is that the case with both races? Let's just have a quick look at the races. Yeah, first. So for the big one, you start on the 2nd. So race registrations on the 1st of April, April Fool's Day. Some people might say that you're a fool for doing such a long race. And you've got 100 hours. So you set off on the 2nd of April. So if you want to get your fix of a long trail, you want sort of a more budgetable race, but the same sort of views and the same sort of distances as the Spine, then this could be your gateway drug into the long stuff. So get in touch and we'll see if we can figure out with Stu whether there's some things we can do with discounts or anything that we can sort of figure out. But basically, this is the advert for it. So go and get your trail fix with Ranger Ultras in April with the PB 137 and the PB 270. Go, sign up now. Yes, we are recording. So welcome to the Ultra Running Sam podcast. Tiaan Erwee. Hello.
Hi. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.
No problem, mate. Yeah, we were sort of just discussing, weren't we, just before we hit record, how I helped you out in your hour of need at the end of the Spine. You
That's
your yeah, your feet, you didn't have any shoes left, did you? And it's that age-old problem, isn't it, of when you finish an ultra and your feet have swollen up and all the shoes, you don't even want to look at your running shoes ever again, do you? Let alone put them back on again after you've got nice and clean and dry. So we did a deal, didn't we? I said that I'd got a spare pair of sliders with me that I brought when I went to Corfu last year, and they were my holiday sliders, and I had them in my bag just in case. And I said, I'll do you a deal, Tian. I'll give you these sliders if you agree to give me a podcast interview.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sam, it's either that or I mean, I was eyeing a pair of shoes there just around the corner by the Border Hotel. You know, where the hikers they tend to like ditch their shoes after finishing the 10-hour. But I thought that's probably maybe not a good shout. I don't know how long those shoes have been laying there for.
Oh no, yeah, and they'd all be cold and wet, wouldn't they, and horrible. They would be as bad as the ones that you'd just taken off at the end of the spine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, it's yeah, as I told you earlier, it's yeah, or I would have taken my running shoes, but given how they smell after the race, my fellow passengers on the flight back home would probably not have appreciated that either.
Amazing. So where is home now then? So you're not in Guernsey, are you? So you're a man
No.
that's travelled around, haven't you?
Indeed, indeed. So currently, the road is taking me to Switzerland. So I'm currently based just outside of Zurich. So that is all work related. Where since Jan 2023, we've moved over, and yeah, I mean, it's a phenomenal place. It's a bit of a
Yeah.
culturally is a bit of a shift, I'd say, you know, compared to Guernsey. But obviously, there's only that many times that you can run around the island, and then you start looking for green pastures.
Yeah, not as many mountains in Guernsey.
Exactly, exactly.
Um, yeah. So as you're like a new guest on the show, officially, I have a question that I sort of ask everybody that comes on the podcast for the first time, which is the superhero question. So, if all of us as ultra runners are superheroes, all superheroes have an origin story, like a backstory of how they became that superhero. So. Tian, what's your superhero origin story? Well, how did you how did you get to be who you are in ultra running now? You know, you literally you're an expert at the spine now. You hold the record, don't you, for actually it's the complete record, isn't it? For summer, it's the fastest time officially in the race, isn't it? That
For the
you
summer
hold.
span, correct? Yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah.
the summer. Yeah, and so how did you go from normal human being to superhero Tian?
That's a fair question. I mean, I think, I mean, my background is, funnily enough, I come more from a cycling background.
I did
And
hear that.
so when I was quite young, that was kind of my usual sport that I ended up doing, that being mountain biking or road cycling. And you know, as you head into varsity, and you know, certain priorities or certain matters take priority, that being the social life. Cycling obviously took a bit of a back seat, and I realized, you know, I probably need to start thinking about getting a bit more of a balance in my life, and that's when I started looking at trail running. And as you know, that was kind of, you know, Ryan Sands was kind of that was up and coming with, you know, him winning quite a bunch of the the you know, the what is it, the five deserts, the ultra. That was kind of almost the genesis really of where ultra running really started. And I was kind of a bit of a north star for me in a way, where I said, well, that looks pretty cool, and I think I want to kind of give one of those a go. And yeah, so there's one multi-stage race in South Africa, which is called the Kalahari Krabi's Extreme Marathon. It's the same format as the MDS, so it's
Mm.
essentially, you know, 5 days, 6 days, five race days, 250Ks spread over those, you know, over the period of the race. And um, similar conditions. And yeah, so I get that a go, and I was actually, you know, pretty chuffed with my result. And I said, well, you know, I mean, this is kind of pretty cool, right? You have to be self-sustained, and you know, you kind of push the envelope a little bit. And that's kind of where it all kind of catapulted from. And you know, from there you start pushing your limits and see, you know, how much further you can go faster. And you know, be it road racing, trail running, or whatever the case may be, you know, it's all in the mix really. And I kind of partake in all of it really.
Mm.
Yeah. And so far, I think I haven't really found my limits yet. So who knows what's coming? What's next?
Yeah. Amazing. I think you're being a bit modest there, aren't you, when you talk about your cycling career? So, I've heard that you cycle to a very high standard. So what kind of standard did you get up to as a cyclist?
It was so as a youngster, I mean, we cycled quite professionally. So it was like SA national championships and stuff like that. But I think cycling is quite a cutthroat sport, and the margins between your competitors are quite small,
Hmm.
right? So you're talking about, as you would know, like grams, and it's slight differences that can make a world, that makes a world difference amongst your peers. And so you really need to be super talented to actually make it work. And I think I just made the call eventually where I said, after trying to do this semi-professionally, that I probably won't see myself down that road in the near future. And that's why I decided, probably the varsity route would be better. But yeah, I mean, there's still quite a lot of my friends who's still actually doing cycling quite professionally. We were quite a big bunch of friends who was quite keen on doing this, and some made it, some don't. But I'm actually happy where I'm now, where I've actually found trail running, which, in my personal opinion, that's really my passion and where my love's at.
Yeah. Yeah. Did someone told me that you're good mates with Mark Cavendish?
No. So I know about him, but I'm not personally friends with him.
Oh,
But yeah, I think.
okay. Somebody's been telling tales about you then, obviously. Yeah, because obviously that world, there's a good crossover there, isn't there, to ultra running. So there's sort of the dedication and the commitment that you need to sort of. So did you sort of find it quite easy to sort of transfer everything that you'd learned from cycling into ultra running then?
I think so. I think, I mean, ultimately it's discipline, right? So I think it's the discipline that kind of plays a major role between the two sports, where if you have the mindset to put the work in, you're going to see the results. And I think, I mean, with trail running, it's exactly the same thing. So if you, I mean, to an extent as well, right? Because there's also the mental aspect to it, depending on the distance that you're talking about. But still, you still need to be disciplined to actually, put the work in. I mean, yes, there's a lot of people that say, yeah, but it's all mental. Yes, but not quite, right? So there's still a bit of work that needs to be done as well. So I think that transition kind of helped with it as well. And I think it's also just my love for being outside, right? So I think that's, again, not just road cycling, mountain biking as well, just getting all dirty and out in the dirt. That's kind of pretty cool, right? So, and I think, again, that's where trail running just kind of was a very good segue into that, and then some, because you can get to certain locations and areas which, well, back then a typical mountain bike won't be able to get you there. I mean, now with e-bikes it's a little bit different. So, but I mean, I think it's again, it's the areas to be explored still, and it's very possible with your 2 feet.
Is that something that's sort of been with you your whole life? We obviously like you. Where did you sort of grow up? So I'm guessing South Africa somewhere. So was it very outdoors? Your upbringing?
Yeah, exactly. So I was brought up, in the Stellenbosch area. So that's very much the wine area of
Oh,
South Africa. And I mean, it's very famous for its trails, and there's really good trails over there, be it mountain biking, trail running, and hiking, and so forth. Being an outdoorsman, I mean, that's really kind of such a prime location to be. And then all the neighboring, the whole peninsula, in and around Cape Town is, I mean, it's just phenomenal. And I mean, as we speak, there's loads of races just popping up like mushrooms, and definitely the trail running scene has just exploded, right? And yeah, so if you're an outdoor lover, that's just such an awesome location or area to be in.
yeah, beautiful. Um, so what sort of attracted you to the spine race then? What was the sort of thing that sort of set you off? Because we first met, and I don't know whether you remember this or not. You can't remember this. I remember it. So I met you at the Middleton checkpoint on was it the first winter you ever did? Was that
Uh,
20?
That was the second,
Was that?
actually. Yeah, things kind of went backwards for me, to be honest. So I've DNF'd twice at the Winter Spine. So the first one was actually in Alston.
Hmm.
So I actually got to Alston, where the race medics pulled me from the race, given that I had a serious tendonitis issue, and but I was completely ill prepared for the race. I mean, I think I mean, I think one of the runners even like laughed at me. Is like, "What are you on about?" Because I think my trail shoes were like it's like these hybrid kind of like a Challenger Hoka Challenger type shoe, which is clearly not fit for purpose. And I was just kidding around all over the place, and yeah, it was just a recipe for disaster, right? So I was like constantly like falling in the bog, and someone had to like dig me out, and yeah, so that was just a horrible, horrible experience. I mean, I did get myself all the way up to Alston, and
Mm.
I got my fair share of lasagna at least. But yeah, then as you said, the following attempt was me getting to Middleton.
That was it, yeah.
And yeah, and there I had some serious issues as well. So there I picked up quite a bad case of cellulitis in my left leg.
Mm.
I mean, it was like swollen, like it was completely swollen
Yeah, I
up,
remember.
and they again the medics had to pull because they actually thought I was struggling with compartment syndrome. So they raced me to Darlington A&E to get it
Mm.
checked out. And this is now obviously during COVID time, just post COVID, so it's 2022.
That was it, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just getting I remember just getting admitted into the A&E was it was an experience in its own where I think I probably got tested for COVID probably about 6 times before they wanted to admit me to the into the ward. And I was thinking to myself, like, is this really worth it? Shall I just, can you just
Yeah.
put a drip on me and leave me outside at least and get it done? But yeah, anyway, so long story short, yeah, it was a pretty grim ordeal.
Mm.
Found myself in hospital, was there for 3 or 4 days before they wanted to release me. And yeah, so that was a pretty tough one. So that I think that's where the spine kind of got the better of me. And with all these kind of things, I think they keep it keeps on biting at you. Every single year you see the entries fill up fairly quickly and think to yourself, oh, is it a blessing in disguise, or are you missing another opportunity? Do you want to just give it a go and get it done? And yeah, this is why I thought, for this year, I need to put things straight, because this is it's been biting at me for years now. And
Mm.
yeah, and thankfully, I finally gave it a go and finished it.
But you did have some amazing success at the summer race, didn't you? So you came back in. So was that 2023 or was that the summer of 22? Summer of 22?
That was, yeah, summer of 22, I think. Yeah, it must be 22. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you came back and you obviously won the summer spine, and you set the course record. So you lowered it. So Ian Keith had it before, and it was like 77, was it? And
Yeah.
you dropped it down to seven. What was it? I've got it written down. Yeah, I've
About
got it.
70 or something. I can't remember, but
I've got it written down. Down to 70 hours, 46 minutes and 50 seconds.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was a good chunk off Ian's record. So that's the time that everyone wants to go for now, isn't it? Regardless of like summer or winter, you've still hold that record, don't you? So do you think that's gonna? I mean, a lot of people have sort of said that it'd be pretty hard to get to touch that record now, even in the summer. So that must be something you're pretty proud of, that it's not gone down yet.
yeah. No, absolutely. I think, I mean, records are obviously meant to be broken. I do think, especially that. Well, I think given that, yeah, I felt really well at that. I felt really good going into that race, and I was quite fit. I still think there's definitely the opportunity to go sub 70 for sure. Absolutely.
Mm.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I had it even for myself. I know I messed about quite a bit, right? So I think and that's always the issue when you're so far ahead, that you don't have someone biting at your heels. That you tend to kind of just burn through time at all the CPs, right? So you'll just faff
Yeah.
about and
Mm.
have a chat and have a good laugh about it. And yeah, it's slightly different. Whereas if you have someone that's like right on your back, and you kind of like go in, do your thing, fly out, off you go.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, you can see both sides of the coin in that aspect. So it could be because given that you're a bit more relaxed, you obviously a bit more recharged, refreshed, and you're much stronger like out on the field. Whereas if you go in and out, then you tend to burn out a lot quicker, and that degradation is somewhat more exponential, I'd say.
Mm.
But yeah, I personally think I do expect that to be
Mm.
taken fairly soon. And I think that's just the nature of the beast, right? I think as the minute when records are broken, or at least you can show that records can be broken, then it's very easy for other runs to come in and exceed that actually.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, on that particular run then, what was your sort of strategy with sleep and everything? Because there's a lot of talk now, isn't there, about how people sleep on the race? Because obviously, like Jack did like next to nothing last year on the winter race, and then Kim Collison was quite vocal about wanted to try and get more sleep on this year's winter race. So, with you having such a quick time that summer, how, what was you what kind of sleep did you have on that race?
That's an interesting question, and I think it also depends on it depends on the conditions and the terrain. So if I think about my Tour de Glacier attempts or runs the last 3 years. So there I tend to move more towards like really short like stints. So I'll sleep like half an hour power naps, right? You do half an hour power nap. The first one I probably will only be doing after about 48 to 50 hours. So I can easily
Mm.
push through for very easily for 50 hours with no questions
Wow.
asked. And whereas this year with winter spine is a completely different beast, right? So there simply because you exert so much more energy. I mean, we were plowing through knee-deep snow, post what was it, post Hebden, up towards Hawes, and that just burns through energy, right? And then you're just absolutely tired, right? So there, half an hour power naps is not going to get you anywhere. So there, you probably want to kind of change your strategy to be more focused on taking, maybe a longer rest, but not as often. Whereas with the tour, my approach is slightly different, where I take quite a while before I take my first nap, but then it's like exponentially, like the frequency wise is way more. So I'll have like, then after every like 10 hours, and then it becomes 8 and 7 and 6, and then you do these like very quick power naps. So it really depends, right, on the conditions and the type of terrain that may or may not work for you. Uh,
Mm.
yeah. So and again, so for as an example for spine, I slept very little. So I tried to sleep in halls, which failed spectacularly. So that was kind of pointless. But yeah, I think overall, I probably only slept about just over an hour and a half, if even that much. So again, but with one set being about, close to an hour. And then I had like a very quick like power nap. I think it was actually um, in at Bernese, given you have a half an hour max time. So
Yeah.
I had like a quick bite, and then I had like a 15-minute break. And then the rest was really just me falling asleep on the trail. So there would literally be, I think there was a couple of supporters who actually ran into me whilst I was passed out in the forest. They're coming out of Hadrian's Wall. I mean, that whole forest is just, in my opinion, it's just it's like a psychedelic section
It
in my
is,
you
yeah. Yeah.
just going to an absolute trance. I completely even forgot that I was even racing. I was thinking about like I don't know. I was like having like holiday thoughts, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm gonna go to the beach in a minute, and then I just like landed in the ditch, and then luckily they like walked up to me and thought like I was probably like half dead or something, and I woke up from their voices, and I was like, oh geez, what is going on? So looked at my watch, it's like, hey, guys, I probably need to I need to crack on. So I was so again, you also have to be mindful of on your own requirements, and not just trying to push it and become a zombie, and
Mm.
because that's not conducive either, right? So yeah, it's really just kind of a balance.
Mm. The sleep monsters. Mm.
Yeah, as sleep monsters, absolutely.
That section, I think, that is one of my favourite sections. The bit of when you come out of Bellingham and you climb over the moor, and then you go through that forest. It's Kielder Forest, isn't it? Yeah, and
Yeah,
there's lots of trees down. That was so when I did Challenger North and I did the full winter last year, and they were the places where I had my most hallucinations. And I don't know whether it's because I had them on when I did Challenger North, and I was seeing bears and knights in shining armor and stuff along there.
yeah.
That I think when I went back there again in the winter, I remembered it and I started to hallucinate the same things again, like seeing bears and everything. And I've got on my phone, I've got a video of me like just videoing the trees and just pointing out bears, like bear. there's a bear there, and there's a bear there.
You can
And
like
it,
revisit the video. So like, what am I on about?
it's true, but I don't think I've never got to the point where I've no, I tell a lie. Yeah, on Challenging North, I went and on the Cheviots, I went and lay down in like when you there's there's loads of sections where the it's like all the ground is just like there's almost like holes in it. It's like there's you can see like it looks like they're like frozen waves of
Yeah.
land like with bog in. And every time I saw one of them, I was like, oh, they look so comfortable. I could just crawl in there and just
Just like
lie
curl
and
up.
have a little sleep. And I knew that, and I was off course and everything. And I was like, no, if I go to sleep here, I'm off course. The safety team are gonna know I'm off course and I'm not moving. They're gonna
Yeah.
send somebody for me. I need to get back onto the trail and go to sleep on the trail, and then someone will wake me up. Yeah,
Sorry, Sam
it's
just
all
called.
right.
I want to quickly put the TV on mute there.
It's all right. Don't worry.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's fine. It's normally cats and dogs and things disturbing us. So overall, then, did you feel like um, you 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 slept right, or could you have done something differently? Do you think that you could have done things a lot differently, or did you just make the best of what you could do at the time?
Yeah, I think it's probably the latter, right? So I think, yeah, as I said, so I think with Hawes, that they're I kind of knew the outcome where I just simply would not be able to sleep. It's just far too early. I mean, the
Yeah,
adrenaline is rushing, and there's
daytime as
always,
well.
yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of the thought was there. It's like, I mean, it's quite a long push all the way up to Alston, and do you want to push it? Because I was really, I think up to Hawes, given the snow and the conditions, right, it was absolutely brutal. So that really took it out of me. And I thought to myself, wow, I mean, if we're going to have the same conditions all the way up to Alston, I'm going to struggle. So that was kind of the mindset I had, where I just want to kind of race up for a little bit at least, see if I can recover, and then push through. So yeah, so that didn't really go as planned, but I mean, I mean, there's still some benefit in just taking a bit of a break and a breather and just kind of
Mm,
just resetting the mind.
yeah.
But yes, I think that was probably not the most efficient way of spending my time. I think yeah, for the rest was probably okay. Sleeping was. I do know, but that's probably more for other reasons. I did again faff about at the CPs for sure, right? So you can always say to yourself like if you look at your watch and I mean where did the time go? Um, and, and that's always the most frustrating point. If you ask yourself like what have you actually done, right?
Yeah.
That has been productive for that time that you've been in the CP, and could you not rather have just spent that time sleeping? Um,
Mm,
and when you start doing the math, and then it becomes yeah, you can kind of get angry at yourself very quickly and realize, well, you were just like kind of staring at your bag for like a few minutes, and then you're
it's
like,
an
oh,
hour.
actually, yeah, there's something I need to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I always laugh about this one when I look at I think someone took a video when I was in Olsen for the summer spine, and I think I actually counted myself how many times I took out the base layer and put it back in whilst I was being interviewed, and it's like 3 or 4 times. It's the same thing that you kind of do like in winter as well. You just don't realize you do funny things and you just
Yeah.
repeat it. You take one thing out, you put it back in, take it out. But it's like these kind of things, right? Where you obviously waste loads and loads of time. So you kind of, again, this comes with practice, right? Where you almost have to go in with a plan and say, well, okay, either have it down in writing, and okay, well, this is CP3's bag and this is the list and, in big letters and this is what I need to do or whatever. So you have a bit of a better plan, use your time a bit wiser. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's just so easy to waste time. Yeah, I mean, for me, I did have a bit of a struggle with, well, even before going into the race, I had a bit of a knee issue already. This is again post the Torglass race, which I mean, it's just an absolutely brutal race, which you just really struggle to recover from something like that. And so that was my biggest concern, is just protect the knee, protect the knee, protect the knee. And yeah, and as luck would have it, it kind of started to flare up again. So again, there was very cautious and doing a lot of precautionary things at all the CPs, be it with taping or whatever the case may be, but again, that takes more time out of your, out of what you've allowed yourself for at the CP. But yeah, again, it's all a balancing act as well, right? So you are going to pay for it if you don't take care of these things, right? So foot care is another one, right? So that's another thing. I'd probably spend 5 or 10 minutes at each and every CP and make sure, my feet is 100%, dry them out, swap out socks, take my shoes. I mean, a lot of people say don't take your shoes off. I'm quite the contrary. I always take my shoes off, take my socks off, and just even for that 10 minutes that your feet can actually just air out a little bit, that makes a huge difference. So it's like small things like this, right, which obviously takes up more time, but you may have there's more value add for me personally, doing these kind of things than rather just cutting it out and saving a few minutes here and there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's those the sort of things that you, I suppose, with experience of the race, don't you? So if you're doing, it's not your first rodeo, is it? You return into the race and you've kind of perfected your craft, haven't you, over the years, knowing what works and what doesn't work. Was there anything that you sort of went into the race this year doing differently that to what you'd done in previous years? Anything that changed?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm somewhat converted now to waterproof socks. So I honestly think it's so I've always been woolen socks and Gore-Tex shoes can that can work, but I've actually now I'm swayed that the waterproof socks work, right? And it took me forever to get this to source to actually get the secret get the secret sauce to perfection. So it's be it having a very thin sock inner and then having the waterproof sock over, because I think what I've experienced is it's a very harsh material, right? So just having, for me personally, just having the waterproof sock alone, again, it chafes like crazy, especially over that distance. I mean, you won't feel the friction if you just go for a typical training run, but I mean, if you're pushing yourself for 270 miles, you're going to feel it. So I think that is one of the fundamental changes I did make compared to the previous rounds, which I do think made a huge difference. So first of all, it keeps you a lot warmer. My feet is actually 100% as we speak, apart from having no big toenails anymore. But I think it's quite a few
Really
others in the same camp anyway. So yeah, so I think that's one of the things I did change. Was and then and gloves is another funny one, right? So I tend to get cold very quickly at night as well. So again, just having proper gloves, of course, like all the main points where you tend to lose quite a lot of heat. Those are small changes, but it had huge implications, I think.
Yeah, I know that was something I'd not really anticipated with last year when I did the full, just how cold you get when especially when you may have the right gear, but if you're like running low on calories, then your body is struggling to make heat, and all the really good equipment that you've got might not be working because you haven't eaten enough. Um, so there's those kind of things to consider, isn't there? Is there anything that sort of caught you out this year that you just thought was like standard and you would have it sort of nailed? What did something jump out at you and cause issues?
Yeah, I think you actually just hit the nail on the head there. So I think, I mean, this is something I've always been struggling with. Is really eating, right? So my nutrition. I mean, you have a phenomenal plan, right? You come to the registration with your 1,500 calories for each and every CP, and you've got this epic plan that you're going to be eating you're going to eat yourself to death basically, and but it never happens, right? I mean, I'm looking at my cupboard now and half
Full
of
of
my
food.
snacks is still there, and it's literally it, right? So you're just so sick of it, so you just can't stomach any sweet stuff. I mean, yes, you allow for having a bit more savory things in there as well, or nuts or whatever the case may be. But even then, you just get to a point where you just can't stomach anything, right? So you want to have proper food, and I think also the conditions, right? So when it's cold and it's miserable and it's really difficult to get some nutrition in your system. I mean, yes, liquids does help, but it's only gonna take it to a point, right, where you then need to start getting some proper solid foodstuffs in. So I think that always, and I know that anyway. So that's always an issue that I tend to face or have. which yeah, it's really just trying to push yourself to eat, but
Mm,
it's not always that easy.
no, no. How many plates of lasagna did you have at Alston?
This year, I felt very guilty, so I only had three. Yeah, I thought to myself, geez, I mean, because it actually got pretty busy at the CP. So I thought to myself, I mean, I'm pretty sure they have like loads of portions, but I thought, no, I don't want to be like pigging myself out here in front of everyone. And yeah, so I have three portions, and I would have probably gone for more if I could. But I mean, obviously, everyone knows it's just a phenomenal. I still need to get that recipe if I can. I don't know if it's like a state secret or, but yeah, it's really good.
Protected, copyrighted.
Yeah.
I suppose the sort of difficulty this year was that because of the harsh conditions, I suppose it slowed down Challenger North, didn't it? So it meant that there was more people in Alston and whereas before there wouldn't be that many people in there, would there?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? So obviously, you've come into the race with all that experience. You've come off the back of so you had an amazing win, didn't you? Tour de Glaciers. So was that something that you've sort of dedicated as much time to sort of getting success there as you have with the spine?
I think so. Yeah, I think I mean the Torglass is one of those events that's kind of very close to my heart, right? So I think, of course, it starts with the Tour de Géant, and you've done that a few times, and then you look further, and I think to myself, I mean, it's two different races, and it's apples and oranges in a way. You really can't compare the two. The one is more, it's obviously flat out racing and it's a super competitive field, where the Tour de Glacier it resembles quite a bit with the spine, where you can be as strong as you want to, but ultimately, if you can't take care of yourself, you will fail, right? So you will DNF, and it's very similar, right? It's just given the length of the race and the limited um, checkpoints or support that you will have with the Tour de Glacier is very similar, right? So you have, what is it, three life bases, and and they're so far, and they're not even evenly spaced even. So I mean, the back half is, you're very much on your own, and that to me personally is the hardest part, because you're way up north, and then you still have to do the whole um, that whole range, the Monte Rosso range still. So it's quite, it's quite brutal. And
What's the distance between the life bases then on that race?
So it depends, right? So so you have I'm gonna lie if I tell you now. Yeah, because your last one is in Gresene, which comes to about halfway. That's your, and it's very, yeah. So it's very similar to, so Gresene is also in Torre Glacier. So that would be your last life base. Donas is run about halfway, and then Gresene being the last. So then you have probably a good, whew, is it 100 miles? Is it more? I think that you're kind of on your own, right? And you have to carry everything. So, you're going to be spending quite a lot of time by yourself,
Mm,
without your drop bag, well, pretty much all the way to the finish. So you have to be kind of, have that mentality or mindset that, you can live without your bag, and, what you have on you. I mean, yes, you have the refugios that you can leverage all from, but yeah, that does mentally kind of make a bit of an impact as well, to
mm,
to be mindful of, that you're going to be out there all by yourself. The course is absolutely brutal. I mean, you're still, still floating around 2.5 3,000 meters at that point in time still, and loads of D plus to be done still. And yeah, and of course the conditions changes, every single hour, which also makes it quite interesting.
mm. Yeah, I suppose these kind of races aren't you like typical ultras, are there? So all the like 100 milers and stuff like that. You get used to having checkpoints, don't you, at certain points along a course. But when you do in races like Tour de Glaciers and the Spine, I always thought that it was quite mentally like a bit of a mental sort of do-over for you when you for the people sort of doing like Challenger South. So you've got that section to Hebden, which is 40 odd miles, and you think, yeah, fair enough. That's like a nice section, and then you know that you've got a checkpoint. But then that next section is so long, isn't it? That from Hebden up to Hawes, it's like 60 odd miles of being on your own in the middle of, well, not in the middle of nowhere, but it can feel so. It's these are the kind of things that you're so that experience that you've got of sort of being on your own for 100 miles, does that sort of set you up for, does it feel like the checkpoints are closer together on the spine when you're used to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you raise a very interesting point, right? So when you head out of, so yeah, so Hepton, that CP is crazy busy, or not busy, but like everything is just like rush hour. Like people go in, they have a, everyone's still relatively fresh. They know they're going to be in and out 5 minutes tops, job done. And but then you have to be mindful that your next CP is really far, right? So I mean, yes, you have Madam Town, but I mean that's really just to get some hot water, and that's pretty much it, right? There's not a lot that's going on over there. So the stretch, as I said, all the way up to horses is pretty, yeah, it's really far, right? And that could kind of catch you off guard as well, right? If you're not really geared up for that, which is something one needs to be absolutely mindful of. And I think to your point, right? So I think this is where the Torre Glacier also, for me personally, is kind of a way where I've learned that as well, be it the hard way or not. How to manage, where you have these differential or like different spaces of CPs as well. It's not always as easy as that. And I think also given the conditions we faced right this year with the spine, even with the extended distance between the two CPs, that being horse versus between Hepton and horse, having to ply through ankle deep snow brings you to a snail space, and
Mm.
that also kind of breaks you in a way, right? So I think that is again one of those mental things that you also had to kind of consider, which all kind of contributes to either making it or not. But yeah, so it's definitely, yeah, it was quite a challenge, I would say.
So which was harder then, Tour de Glacier or this year's spine?
It's an interesting questions. I think, I mean, last year's glaciers, we had some pretty brutal conditions as well. So it was quite, of the three that I've done, last year was by far the hardest. I mean, I was chasing the record, the course record, but just given the conditions, it was just, yeah, it was really tough. I mean, we had a day and a half of just relentless rain, up in the mountains, which is quite brutal. I mean, we had loads of snow still because the snow just did not thaw at all, and it was gotten to the point where the snow was more icy. So you had your crampons on, but it was kind of useless because it's just like going down ice on on a mountain, and yeah, so it was really really tough. I think so. Conditions wise, it made it quite tough. But then again, I mean, this year's spine is the same, right? So you had like really really difficult conditions. You had we had snow fields all the way up, up until Hawes, and then from there it was just, a mud bath, right? It was just absolutely insane. So you had literally the worst of both worlds in this year's spine, which obviously made it super fun. And I think everyone can say that they did participate or were part of this year's spine can say that they did participate in one of the toughest editions, I would say. But yeah, to give an answer, it's quite difficult because it's I think in both they can have a bit of a bite in their own right.
Yeah. Which one's your favorite though?
Ooh, okay, that's a good question. I would say Thor. Yeah, it's a hard one, right? So I think it's just because yeah, it's well, so I mean, time wise, right? So you spend for Tor, you spend all the way up to 150 hours, I think is the cutoff, right? For Tor Glacier. So that is a crazy amount of time that you'll be spending by yourself. So, and I think, I mean, this is kind of the interesting thing, right? So I think with these kind of races, everyone's got different reasons why they end up doing these kind of things, right? So some people feel like they just need to break away from, their typical daily life. And I'm probably in that camp as well, where, you just feel like you can kind of just break away from, your typical 9 to 5 and, just do something that's completely berserk like this and, and just have a blast, right? I mean, yeah,
Mm.
obviously you're gonna go through super low moments where you hate yourself. You say, why would I do this? And you're gonna have super high moments where which you're always gonna remember and cherish, and that's why you love it, right? And I think this is where the tour kind of resonates with that, because you just spend that amount of time on the course, probably by yourself. I mean, I recall, looking at the horizon, 2 o'clock in the morning, all you see, you can just see that. That's when the Tour de Jar athletes started running. So they do a loop kind of inside the Torglass, around the Aosta Valley, and you can just see like in the distance, like all these like tiny little headlamps, and they're running like ants. And you think of yourself, that's insane. And here I am in the middle of nowhere. I've literally no idea where I am, and I'm trying to navigate. Whereas they have these like little yellow flags that they can follow, and so it's kind of a weird concept where that's kind of the things I just enjoy, right? So of the tour where you just absolutely by yourself, you just have to kind of figure it out. And the spine is kind of the same thing, right? So it's not as long. I mean, you won't be spending 150 hours, but it's you have that same taste of you want to be doing something absolutely ridiculous and just break away from your typical 9 to 5, and just be able to accomplish something in you in person. So I think it's although I like Tour, but I think Spine's got some characteristics which obviously will trump Tour in a way, right? So just the sheer horrid conditions, which is brutally lovely in a way. I mean, Tour again has just got a few other things which obviously the Spine won't have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's two iconic races, but yeah, very similar but very different at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your sort of plans for? Because obviously, third place. Are you sort of feeling revved up for coming back next year and wanting to do it a bit quicker, or are you happy with your performance this year? How are you feeling now on reflection?
Yeah, I think to be honest, right? I think, well, so I don't know if I told you this, but I mean, I had a bit of a bummer of a start to the Spine, right? So I mean, I just, even when I got to Manchester, my bags got lost, right? So you already, and then on Saturday when you had to do your registration, I was sitting at the airport still till around like 6 o'clock or something at night.
Oh, didn't know that. No.
And trying to wait for my bag, and eventually it arrived, and then like rushed normal way back to pick up the car, rushed through to Edale. Had a super late registration, and they were all waiting just for me to give a quick deep a briefing as well. And so already there I was kind of on you're already stressed out, and you think to yourself, gosh, is this really the way that you should start a race like this? It doesn't make any sense, right? So you finally got a restaurant open, got to bed like super late, and then you have to attempt a 270-mile race at 8 in the morning. So
Mm.
and you think to yourself, right, okay, well, if you can already just get that right, and already you're kind of starting off on the right foot, like, oh, how would that place you in the next edition, right? So that's already kind of running in through your mind, and you think to yourself, okay, well, conditions wise, right? So yes, I mean, you had it this way, but what if you had it this way? How do you
Mm.
think that would that work to your benefit, or to your detriment? Who knows, right? So I guess so you always start, the minute when you cross that finish line, you always start thinking about these things, and you think to yourself, I'm pretty sure I can do better, right? So yeah. So to your question, I mean, who knows? Maybe if I if I'm around, maybe I can give it another go.
Yeah. It's funny into how things things with races can seem to go wrong, can't they? But you can have like a good result. I remember like rushing around the night before like a multi-day race and blowing the turbo up on my car basically. And so I had no car. And I was like, in that kind of situation, you're like, you don't want to sort of catastrophize. And my wife was like, well, we're gonna have to sort the car out. Are you sure you should be racing? And I was like, the car's still going to be broken on Monday morning. I can't really do anything about it now, so I may as well do the race. And we ended up borrowing a car from my brother-in-law, and I did the race, and it was, everything went fine. But it was so stressful the night before the race. You just
Yeah.
think, and to the point where when I was running, I was still feeling the stress. Like I could feel all my chest was all tight
Yeah.
from the anxiety of stressing out the night before. And you think to yourself, it could it have been worse? Yeah, it could have been worse. Could have been better, yeah. But you kind of dealt those cards, aren't you? And you sort of have to deal with. But I suppose a race like the Spine is all about overcoming obstacles, isn't it? So I suppose having your bags going missing and not getting to the race until really late is just another Spine obstacle.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, it's inevitable, right? That things will go wrong at the spine.
Yeah,
That's
at
just
some
it's just
point.
a matter of when. But yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, even that night still, I was like frantically like messaging everyone and shame bless her heart. So I spoke to Sabrina and she's like, yeah, no, I can sort you out with kit, right? So I was like, okay, cool, cool, cool. I know I'm quite small, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit in your kit. But you do know I have got like literally nothing, not even clothes. So yeah, sure,
Wow.
I'm sure we can sort you out. So I just luckily everything came before 8 o'clock on Sunday.
Mm,
But yeah, as you said, it's these things happen, right? So just how you manage it and how you move on with it.
yeah, yeah. There was the guy. Did you see a guy called Benji? I can't remember his last name. He crossed the line, but he'd not gone and got his tracker. So he's all registered and everything and dropped his
Yeah.
bag off, but for some reason, like went out without his tracker. So he started the race and realized he didn't have a tracker,
Oh no.
and had to run all the way back. So I think he got like halfway up he'd only got like up the road
Yeah.
into Edale. Had to turn around, run back, get his tracker on, and then run back to the start and go through the start again. So he
Jeez.
was chasing everybody. And then I saw him further up. I saw him in Middleton when I was filming Laura Swanton Rouvlin, and he was sort of saying, how his race had sort of turned around from being feeling like it was a disaster, forgetting his tracker. That's like the kind of the nightmare that you have the night before a race,
Yeah.
isn't it? That you start the race without your bag or something. And he had that, but he turned his race around and he was like doing well and he was pushing and everything. So it's funny how things can sort of seem like, game over, but then things could turn around. Have you sort of experienced that yourself in the Spine, like where you felt like your race was over or something's gone completely wrong and then it's turned around?
To be honest, yes, and it actually happened very, very early on. So it was actually coming down. So there's a knee issue that I have, right? So there's a bit of a ligament issue,
Hmm.
and going downhill, it's not great. So I can definitely feel there's a bit of pain, and I think the first proper descent that we've hit was coming down to Torside.
Yeah, I know that hill.
And and I remember I saw Damien was standing at the top and he's like high-fiving everyone, and we're all running together, lovely and all. And the minute when it hit that descent, I realized like, oh, this is not good. So I was like hobbling down the hill there, and I thought to myself, this is gonna be not
Mm,
great if I have to
clearly,
ask
yeah.
the mountain rescue team at the bottom to say, guys, I'm sorry, but this is as far as I go. And so there it was literally it where I was kind of thinking to myself, man, this is not. Yeah, I was just kind of mentally shattered. And but yeah, as you said, right, so then just how do you get out of that pit of despair, right? So you
Mm,
kind of, yeah, you just have to kind of pick yourself up and see how it goes, right? So I mean, yes, I hobbled around for a little bit, for a couple of miles or whatever, and eventually it kind of subdued a little bit, and crack on again and see how it goes. And thank goodness we have about 48 tablets of paracetamol in our drop bags, so every tablet counts, and I can promise you there's other fellow runners who's more than happy to get rid of it if you run short. So
yes, yeah.
yeah, but that was definitely one of my lowest, and very early on.
Mm,
Yeah.
that is early on, but like that kind of thing. Is that something that with years of doing the race, that you've got that experience now to know that it wasn't a race ending event, it was something that you could get through? Is that something that you've learned over the years, or because some people would have like hobbled down that hill and thought, well, like you say, that's my race over. I need to stop now, like self-preservation, and would think maybe it would be silly to carry on. But is that something that you know your body well enough to know that you could push on?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've especially with this injury, I've been struggling with it for since after the tour now. So it's kind of been like a bit up and down, where some weeks is okay, some weeks it's just horrific, and but you do know it's not a linear. The pain is not linearly, so you reach a point where it's just kind of going to plateau. And if you can maintain or manage it without causing serious harm to yourself, then there's no reason why you can't just push on, right? And I think that's kind of, if you know what that is, where that plateau is going to be, and you're willing to sustain that level of pain, then yeah, by all means, no, not that I condone this in any shape or form, but I think then you can probably crack on, right?
Yeah.
And then that's basically where I was at. It's just I know that yes, not ideal, but I know it's not going to get any worse in a way. Yeah.
It's a wonder that like some paracetamol company hasn't started to sponsor the race because, people use. I didn't realize, how much people rely on painkillers with the race until I did Challenger North and the medics were like, yeah, it's for what have you got? And I was like, oh well, I've got someone had given me like a box of Coco Deal. And I was like dubious about using them. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, if it's yours, you can use it, sort of thing. Only take it like every 4 hours. And I was thinking, I haven't got any concept of what 4 hours is on this race. So you don't know.
Yeah.
It could be an hour, it could be 10 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. But I just remember the Cocodamol was the thing, the only thing that got me through the rest of that race with my feet. And I kind of got and I felt like afterwards I was like I think I might be addicted to Cocodamols now.
Yeah. The winning recipe. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think yeah, on the concept of time, it was the same for me, right? So it's like, and I said 4 hours. Like, when did I actually like take this, and how many milligrams did I take? I've like literally no idea. So I'm pretty sure it's okay. I feel okay. So uh, it was just an absolute yeah.
Yeah, they're good. The medical team are, they're great. I had the chance to. So last year I had a fall and fell and like hit my head and hit my hip and everything, and the SSTs tried to put me out of the race, and I was like, no, I want a medic to come and see me. So a medic came to see me, and she basically like assessed me and said, you're fine if you want to carry on. It's your own funeral basically. You carry on. And I couldn't remember who she was at all. And then this year, with me sort of going up and down the course, visiting different checkpoints, she came up to me and she says, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I was like, "No, not at all." And she was like, "I was the medic that gave you the all clear to go at Greenhead." And I was like, and I gave her a hug and I was like, "Right, I need a photo with you. I've got to have a photo with you because I need to remember what you looked like because I couldn't remember." And for saying that there's a lot of safety issues around the race, isn't there? Like with people being injured or people that aren't allowed to continue and stuff. To have them let me go and carry on was like I felt like that was like a real privilege to be able to finish that race. And I did say to her at the time, I was like, and you need to let me finish because my wife won't let me come back next year.
Oh, classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I think, I mean, the oversight to our own well-being was phenomenal, right? I think, yes, you can have people that kind of trying to hide some symptoms, if I can put it that way. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, if they spot it, yeah, it'll very quickly be escalated, and they would make the right call, which sometimes you do feel like, why, is this fair, right? But I mean, obviously it's your own, it's for your own good.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
yeah, yeah, you should simply just accept what they have to say, because they're obviously way more knowledgeable than what you are in that current state, right? Otherwise, yeah,
Yeah, when
it's
you're
just
not thinking straight. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you had trouble with cellulitis on that winter spine. So am I right in thinking that you had issues on glaciers as well with it?
Yeah, the problem is, so the first time I ever had cellulitis was with the winter spine, and the problem with that is it is susceptible for reoccurrence.
Hmm.
And yeah, as you say, so I started picking up a mild symptom around refugio della Barma, which is just after halfway. Yeah, so it's just after, yeah, so you go through Donas, up Coda, and then you head down to Balma. And there I already realized something is like going on. You kind of feel like it's almost like your skin just like stiffens up, right? And then it just becomes this, it just flares up, right? And you can see, I actually took a Koki pen and I kind of like marked the outlines to see if it like how much it actually spreads. And I mean, thankfully, it kind of stopped compared to winter spine, where it was just literally running all the way up my leg. So that was kind of a blessing in disguise. I just had to constantly like keep an eye out for it to make sure it doesn't spread any further. And after the race, fortunately, the race medics, they were able to give me some um, some meds to get that sorted as well. But yeah, so and this is actually one of the key reasons why foot care for me was like paramount for this winter spine, because I knew I'm going to have the same issue again. Because the minute when you start running through boggy terrain and through all the farmers fields with all the all the poo and stuff, and it's just it's a recipe for disaster to have cracked skin, and then you pick up a bacteria, and then same thing. And then this is kind of why I played around with waterproof socks and just making sure I can somehow isolate my feet from the exterior in a way as best as possible, and then at all the CPs to properly get it cleaned, to make sure that I kind of reduce the susceptibility of actually picking this up again. And I think it kind of worked, thankfully. Otherwise, I mean that it's so easy for something like that to kind of take you out of the race.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because when if you think about shorter races, like 100 milers and stuff, that kind of thing isn't an issue, is it? Because you sort of anything that you come across in the race like that would it doesn't matter because like 24 hours later and you're at home, aren't you? It's
Yeah,
not an
yeah,
issue. But with like the spine and with like glaciers, you're out for so many days that you can get something, and it's long enough for it to then start to affect you later in the race,
yeah.
isn't it? So, yeah, it's one of those. So that's really smart thinking, isn't it? To actually sort of. But then I suppose with experience, you know that, don't you? That if you've had an issue with something before, just preparing and knowing that, trying to sort of isolate the things that could cause that, and sort of ruling them out. So. I think I suppose that's something that just comes with years of experience of doing the spine, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, prevention is cure. That's it, right? So I think, yeah, as you said, if you know what works, you have to kind of stick to it. Otherwise, yeah, you're just gonna saddle yourself up for failure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously now it's like January. I noticed that were you drinking beer? Was you drinking beer? I keep seeing you.
I
Yeah.
did finish my
Is it?
beer.
Yeah. So are you now sort of in like a bit of a wind down mode, or are you sort of planning ahead for the rest of the year?
It's a good question. So I think, I mean, it's well, so drinking beer and eating loads of leftover snacks is currently my lifestyle at the moment. So, I mean, John Kelly at the finish, I mean, I just love American sweets, right? So he gave me this massive bag at the finish. He's like, I'm not gonna take this back home. So do any of you want it? I was like, yes, please. So I was like literally just like snacking on pop tarts and stuff like that. So but anyway, so yeah, I mean, currently plans for the rest of the year is kind of in the gray still. So my biggest concern really was what's going to happen post spine. Is this going to write me off for the rest of the year or not? And I think I kind of came out quite okay. So I think
Mm,
now it would be for me to kind of plan ahead for the rest of the year. I mean, there's obviously Tour. That's obviously still to be confirmed. I mean, there's crossing Switzerland, so that's the one that Kim Collison ran last year as well.
yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm quite keen. The thing is, all those races kind of fall at the same time of the year as well, right? So
Yeah.
you can't really. I mean, you can if you really want to, but if you want to be competitive at one of them, you probably need to be a bit more focused. There's either that one, there's the UTMR, there's quite a few others that's falling in that time of the year. And then I mean, there's a few others. It's more like 100K, 100 miler distances. I want to try a backyard ultra as well this year. So there's one in May here in Zurich actually. So who knows? Maybe I can kind of give that one a go and see how I've never done it before. So
No, they're intriguing, aren't they? Because this is the conversation I've had before with other runners that I've never I've never pushed myself to the brink before in a race. I've never pushed myself to the point where I literally to this point I haven't DNF'd a race. But I always say that's probably because I haven't tried hard enough in a race, and that's why I haven't DNF. But I can't sort of envision pushing myself to the point where I literally can't go anymore. So is that the kind of thing that sort of intrigues you about a backyard ultra?
I think so. I think so. I think also I'm quite okay with sleep deprivations. I'd like to see how long I can kind of just crack
Mm.
on with it with very little sleep. And yeah, so I think I mean I don't want to go on for too long because I feel like I'm going to burn through annual leave too quickly, and I can probably spend that a bit more efficiently. But I'd like to kind of just see how far I can go with this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, whether I'll like it or not, that's another question, I guess. I mean, I've done like a 24-hour like track event, and as boring as it sounds, I actually quite enjoyed it, which is
Mm.
funny, right? So this is back in Guernsey still, and so I think in a way, backyard will kind of not necessarily the same thing, but it kind of it resembles similar characteristics. I
Mm.
think I'll probably definitely want to give it a go and see
Mm.
see what it's all about for sure.
Brilliant. What about something a bit warmer? So, like, because obviously I was speaking to Jack Scott at the last week at the Spine, and he's doing Cocodona in the US, so he's going over to do that. And how do you feel about? Because obviously now the Spine and these other races aren't the only like multi-day big adventure races. There's quite a few popping up sort of all around the world. How would you feel about going over to the US and trying one of those 200 plus milers?
That's a good question. I think, I mean, I probably would. I mean, well, it's probably not that warm per se. So map to 40, for
Right.
example, and those kind of things. I mean, I probably want to definitely give it a go, but probably something a little bit closer to home in a way. I mean, but as you said, I mean, there's so many races popping up left, right, and center. I mean, it's been a while, even since I've done a desert ultra. So again,
Mm,
that's kind of where I started initially, and
mm,
I've got quite a, oh, I don't know if it's still the case, but I had quite a good resilience for heat as well. My tolerance for heat is quite good. So I quite enjoy running in like, mid 40s kind of thing,
wow.
as weird as it sounds. But yeah,
So
so
you're good for both. You're good for
yeah,
both
yeah, so yeah,
conditions
that's
combined.
quite the opposite than spine, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
cold, but the thing is, like, where do you find the time, right? So there's just so many to choose from, um, that you kind of have to be very, mindful of your time to pick the ones that's actually where you're gonna personally feel like you
Yeah.
get the most value add.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
suppose even if you're even if it's your job and it's your living and you do it professionally, there's
yeah.
still only so many races that you can physically do in a year, isn't there?
Exactly, exactly. Because I mean, obviously we're not getting any younger, right? So you know recovering for longer, and I'm personally feeling it myself, right? So where I'm just like, oh, gosh, I mean, why is it taking me this long? I had my protein shake. Shouldn't this be all I need to do? And then tomorrow you can just crack on with you know, another marathon.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 37.
You still
Are you
there? I
All
lost
right,
you then.
there we
I
go.
lost you for a second.
That's all right. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was asking how old you are.
37.
37. Yeah,
Yes.
he's still a whippersnapper.
In spirit.
I'm 47, and I definitely feel. No, I'm not 47. I'm 45, and I definitely feel. I'm starting to feel my 40s now. Like recovery, yeah, it's not a. I can't do 80-mile weeks anymore. I know that. But anyway, I appreciate you coming on, Tian, and giving us the lowdown because I've been wanting to interview you for a few years, and our paths haven't really crossed properly for me to be able to feel like I can ask you to come on. So I feel like we've fulfilled the deal now, the swap of the sliders in exchange for the podcast interview. So it's a deal well done, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, Sam, for for all the help, and as I said, I'm more than happy to have a chat with you, and whenever you feel like it, feel free to give me a shout,
Yeah.
and we can have another one.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, well, I'll do that when you come back and you win the Winter Spine next
Challenge
year.
accepted.
Thanks, Tian. Appreciate you coming on. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.